following is an MSNBC special presentation.
Here's Johnny.
The undefeated all-time champ of late night. Here's Johnny Carson. I'm Jane Pauley, and this is Time and Again.
The following program is brought to you in living color. Ladies and gentlemen, a good evening to you.
This is Lowell Thomas in New York.
Beatles emerged on the
And go, my fellow Americans.
I'm Chet Huntley, your host on...
We had 73 television cameras on May Day Girl.
President Nixon is actively...
One small step for man.
Hello and welcome to Time and Again. There's plenty of comedy to be found on late night television, what with Jay and Dave and Conan and the rest. But you can't get around the fact that someone is missing. That someone is Johnny Carson, who said goodnight for the last time on May 22nd, 1992, after an extraordinary 30 years as host of The Tonight Show. 30 years. No one else even comes close. Johnny's been quite content to avoid the limelight since then. He'd pop up occasionally, like in 1993 when he was a Kennedy Center honoree. But there's been none of the usual showbiz song and dance, no comeback specials, talk show appearances, theme restaurants. Johnny Carson is a class act. We'll look back over Carson's remarkable career, hear from the man himself in a rare interview, and from longtime sidekicks Ed McMahon and Doc Severinsen. Let's begin in May 1992, just days before his farewell. Katie Couric profiled Johnny for Today.
From New York, The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson.
We've seen him go from a boyish 36-year-old to a boyish 66-year-old. But even though he may have aged a bit, his act has never grown old with the American public.
Okay.
You may want to put this... He does the...
All over my very expensive... Why don't you take this animal, Jim?
He first came to prominence at Channel 2 in Los Angeles in the early 50s.
The Johnny Carson Show. Now, tonight on the show, we've got so many exciting things happening. We've really got a lot of entertainment tonight. And to start things off right, as a special treat on our stage tonight, the very famous television star, radio and stage, Mr. George Burns. George?
Johnny was asked to replace Jack Paar on The Tonight Show. Believe it or not, he didn't want the job. But Johnny was finally persuaded to take the offer, and an American television dynasty was born. It all started October 1st, 1962, when Johnny was introduced by Groucho Marx. From that day on, Johnny was on top of the ratings and on top of the news. His monologues have made him a modern-day Will Rogers, the man America turns to for political humor.
The Watergate thing is driving everybody crazy. You watch the hearings all day today? It's interesting, I want to tell you. It's affecting everything. My wife wanted to go shopping this morning. I demanded a receipt for the grocery money.
By the time he does the show in the evening, he has seen the comedic way of translating the absurdities and sordidness of the front page of the paper into something funny, and just a day or two before the rest of the country realized them.
Occasionally, Johnny had major political figures as guests. Richard Nixon in 1967.
And I think you ought to run for president.
Dr. Martin Luther King was on the show, and so was Bobby Kennedy. But most of the time, The Tonight Show has been strictly for laughs.
Now, let me see if I got the facts straight here. Cleaning woman Clara Clifford discovered your clean copper clappers kept in a closet were copped by Claude Cooper, the kleptomaniac from Cleveland. Now, is that about it? One other thing. What's that? If I ever catch kleptomaniac Claude Cooper from Cleveland who copped my clean copper clappers from kept in the closet, yes, I'll clobber him.
Hi, honey, I left the office early. And have I got a surprise for you? I brought the Colonel home.
I've got a surprise for you. So did I.
You took out one girl. Who was she fat?
That girl.
How fat? She was so fat her bathtub has stretch marks, okay?
That's a fat girl.
Fat chick, you kidding? When she was standing alone, a cop told her to break it up.
But Tonight Show producers say the show was best when everything went wrong.
Those are always my favorites. All the things that don't work. Because that's live, I mean, that's good television.
Very difficult challenge.
Yes,
Johnny.
it certainly is.
Hello?
Just have to repeat sometimes?
No, he'll do it.
Oh.
Hello, Suze. Hello. Hello, Bird.
15 minutes.
Oh yes, the animal segments. For 30 years, The Tonight Show has been a kind of electronic zoo.
Name me one other place in this entire world of 4.5 billion people where a man is sitting with a marmoset on his head. And the odds of that happening, the possibilities stagger the mind.
If you turn sideways, it's cute how the tail is just...
Call the kitty.
Well, how do you call the kitty?
Kitty, 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 kitty.
You saw it here on this show, a bird calling a cat. That's a gutsy bird.
Put some more in there. Here, don't show him the bag. Put that right in there.
Like the animals, Johnny was all too happy to bite the hand that fed him. He took glee in spoofing the commercials that made the show such a goldmine.
Hi. Do you mind if I talk to you for just a minute? I just want to say a few words about diarrhea.
But even with all the comedy, Johnny's highest-rated show was a wedding. 43 million people tuned in to see Tiny Tim marry Miss Vicky.
No one knew it would be a record-breaking thing. I didn't know that at the time, let alone go to Australia by satellite.
Besides Tiny Tim, Johnny has also been host to stars ranging from Judy Garland to the Jackson 5, to Diana Ross, to Itzhak Perlman. But another violinist was Johnny Carson's idol.
Jack Benny told him something. When it's your show and somebody else gets a laugh, it's as good as you getting a laugh.
Johnny, I'm going to say something. I'm very glad to be here. And I'm going to tell you, without me, your show tonight would have been nothing. You ever get the feeling that the world was a tuxedo and you were a pair of brown shoes?
A few years back, the man who holds the record as most frequent guest on the show sang his theme song with Johnny. It sounds rather fitting this week, doesn't it?
We did have fun and no harm done, so thanks for the memory. Sunburns at the shore, nights in Singapore. You might have had a headache, but you never were a bore, so thank you so
We'll have more on Johnny Carson's 1992 farewell a bit later. But when we come back, Johnny Speaks, a rare interview with NBC's Bryant Gumbel.
John William Carson was born in Corning, Iowa in the middle of the Roaring 20s. In 1933, his family moved to Norfolk, Nebraska. And from early on, Norfolk knew Johnny was showing signs of talent. He liked to perform magic tricks and billed himself as the Great Carsoni. He had a typical middle American adolescence, as attested to by these Carson family home movies circa 1940.
I'll be...
Directly after high school in 1943, he enlisted in the Navy and served out the war. When he returned home, he got interested in radio, and by the late 40s, he was a pioneer in a new medium called television.
This is WOW-TV, Omaha, Nebraska.
By Christmas Day 1950, the Korean War had been going on for 7 months. At WOW-TV in Omaha, he took time out for this holiday message.
The world's in quite a boxed-up situation. December, Christmas Day, 1950. And we certainly hope that by next Christmas, in 1951, that peace on earth and goodwill toward men will certainly be the thing.
For Johnny Carson, the 1950s were a time of growing professional success. He moved to California, worked for Red Skelton, and he and his first wife started a family. When Johnny was welcomed to The Tonight Show in October 1962, he began the reign as king of late night that's lasted to this day. Over the years, the show has changed very little, and it has become a staple of American culture.
Is it true, John, that when you were first approached about doing Tonight on a regular basis, you weren't too crazy about the idea?
I turned it down. I was doing a show on ABC called Who Do You Trust? It went from 3 to 3:30 in the afternoon. It was the second show on the network, and time-wise. People forget in the 50s, television didn't go on until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're getting up now at, what, 2 in the morning?
Something like that.
To come to work. The shows didn't even start until 3. I think Dick Clark's American Bandstand out of Philadelphia was the first show on the network. There was nothing. There were no morning shows at all. So we started at 3:30 to 4. So I did that for 5 years. It was very comfortable. It was a comedy interview, you know, the little gimmick at the end. The gimmick was only there to get people. It was a reason for people to come on and make jokes.
Sure.
And, you know, win a cookie or something, and that was it. So when the initial offer came up to do The Tonight Show, I really was very hesitant. It was comfortable. It was an easy show to do. They were paying me very good money. And I said, why should I, you know, go in and try something else?
Were you at all concerned when you started that this was some kind of a watershed for your career, that if this didn't work, then Johnny Carson was in trouble, or if it did, then he was going to go on and become something else?
Yeah, I've often wondered what would have happened when I took over, for example, the Who Do You Trust show I mentioned in 1955 or 56. 55. I was in California. I was out of work. I'd had a show on CBS. It went off the air. This show came up. I had 3 young kids living in California at that time, very small. And somebody said, you want to go to New York and do this game show? I've often wondered what would have happened if that hadn't worked. You know, if I'd have come back here in 13 weeks.
What kind of answers do you give yourself?
I haven't the slightest idea. I don't know what would have happened. I might have turned around and gone back to Omaha.
John, is it fair to say that you leave Johnny Carson at the door and you put on a different person when the band starts?
I don't know. Probably a different appearance, only because I'm now performing in a sense. When I walk out, I'm the same person. I'm more outgoing on the air than I am when I'm off the air, from that standpoint. But many entertainers are, and especially those of us who deal in comedy.
Why do you think that is?
Well, there have been volumes written about that, you know, about why comedians are lonely, depressed, rejected, hostile within themselves. I'm not sure all of that is true. It's that old thing, you know, they said, well, you must be suffer, you know. Every comedian used to come from the Lower East Side. And if you weren't beaten with a jackhandle when you were young, you know, and chased by other groups and beaten up regularly, you couldn't be funny. I don't adhere to that philosophy. I don't think it's necessary. I don't know what makes somebody funny at all. I have no idea. It's just the way you look at things.
You just used a number of adjectives that are generally ascribed to you.
Yes.
When people talk of you. Does it bother you that people have that opinion of you?
Sometimes. I think the people who know me, my friends, know me. And I can't worry about what other people think.
Is that an opinion you've arrived at after years of living with this aura of Johnny Carson, or is that something that was...
No, I'm basically, I'm a shy person. I mean, some may first sound strange, but I am inside. I find large groups of people difficult to deal with. If I go in where there are 100 people in a room, I feel very uncomfortable. But I felt that way before I was ever on television, so that's nothing new to me. When you're young, people call that being standoffish or being conceited. They don't understand that you're uncomfortable. So I probably hide a lot of that personally, but that doesn't mean that you're hostile. That you're cold and Ed McMahon says Carson packs a tight suitcase.
I read that.
I guess that means you keep your emotions and your personal feelings sometimes under check, and that's true.
He said you have difficulty showing your emotions.
Probably, yeah. Probably true. I think I'm better at it now than I was, but I think that's true.
So how does someone as shy as Johnny Carson thrive in the let-it-all-hang-out world of show business? Well, it helps if you can be someone else for a while, like Art Fern, Aunt Blabby, Floyd R. Turbo, or Karnak the Magnificent. We'll hear from them all when Time and Again continues.
OPEC. What does an Irish chicken do?
Let's talk about some of the people we've invited up here.
Yes, I noticed. This is almost embarrassing.
Let's start with the one behind me. Art Fern's Tea Time Movie.
Yeah.
How did it get started?
There was a guy out here years ago in California by the name of, I guess I could use the name, I say here in California, of course we're in New York, by the name of Charles Antel. He was on locally. He sold beauty cosmetics products. This is a mixture of a lot of people in California in the early days. Used car dealers, because in California, for some strange reason I've never been able to understand, people who own automobile agencies have to be on television.
Here at the Gut Hut, don't worry. If you got no credit, got no job, we don't care. Got a bad credit rating, we don't care. Got a prison record, we don't care. Don't expect to pay us, that's when we care. To get to the Gut Hut, you take the Hollywood Freeway, to the Harbor Freeway, to the Long Beach Freeway, drive till you come to Fork in the Road.
What about the guy over your shoulder, Karnak?
I did that originally, believe it or not. I did a show on CBS locally in 1952. And I saw this device, which is giving the answer or the question and then switching it, written by a fellow by the name of Carl Winston for, I think, Liberty or Collier's Magazine, both now gone. He called it Backward Quiz.
OPEC.
OPEC.
What does an Irish chicken do?
Aunt Blabby.
That, again, is a composite. I did a thing in WOW in Omaha. In fact, somebody found a sketch of something I did on Carson's Cellar in the early 50s where I was playing, well, you know, men dressing up as women. It's been a staple since Shakespeare was around and before. Charlie's Aunt. My mother used to hate that when she'd see me do that. I guess she felt it, you know. Her son was just
yes. Yeah.
going over the blind. Says, no, Mother, you see, putting on a dress does not necessarily mean I have personal problems.
Did she come around?
What?
Did she come
finally,
around?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't think she's really ever come around with that.
Floyd R. Turbo.
He just came out of, somebody had written a letter to some paper once, either the Daily News, you know, those letters to the editors, which are so funny. And it was I don't want to say typical, but it was kind of a rube who've got everything a little bit out of sync. All American, but for the wrong reasons.
There's even news in the morning. My wife gets up and starts watching Jane Pauley and Brian Gumbel. This deprives me of my God-given right to watch Leave It to Beaver reruns.
What will it take to replace Johnny Carson?
See, anybody's expendable. I mean, I'm not saying that out of any false sense of humility.
Some are less expendable than others.
I remember when Parr did the show. Everybody says, nobody can replace Jack Parr. That's true. You know, Parr was Parr. Somebody else will come along and do the show. It happened to be me. If I leave the show, they'll say, all right, nobody can replace Johnny Carson. True to that extent that they will do the show completely differently than I will.
What kind of person might it take to do that show successfully?
I think it takes basically somebody who is a comedian. The ones who've been successful at it, going back to the days of Jerry Lester, Ernie Kovacs, Parr, Steve Allen, have all been basically guys who think funny, I think. You can do a certain amount of writing and make observations about things. They have a comedic mind. I think it takes that.
Johnny Carson in 1983, talking about the kind of person it would take to replace him. 9 years later, NBC filled the bill with Jay Leno. Still to come, remembering The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon, and Doc Severinsen look back. And Johnny's excellent farewell when Time and Again continues.
At one time, very long ago, Johnny Carson was a struggling young comedian himself.
I don't know. If we made the bet, I'll pay it. You know me, Fred. What? What are you calling a cheap crumb? I'll pay you the bet. Look, Fred, I mean, I thought we were kidding anyway. All right, if you want the dough, you can have it. All right, go ahead. Take it, Fred. I'll pay for the thing. Go ahead.
He did not forget his early days, and since he's been on The Tonight Show, he's boosted the careers of scores of young comedians. You know that guy, Jay Leno? This is him when he first appeared with Johnny in 1977.
Your mother and I hunted wild dogs for food. We had nothing when we were your age.
Check out Steve Martin, circa 1977.
Buddy Hackett's on the show. He's about 1,000,000 times funnier than I am. But tonight we're getting paid the same.
And when you think of George Carlin, you probably think of him like this. But do you remember him like this? This is Carlin on The Tonight Show in 1965.
I see the radar tonight is picking up a line of thunder showers which extends from a point 9 miles south-southeast of Chester, Pennsylvania, along a line and 6 miles either side of the line to a point 8 miles north-northeast of Secaucus, New Jersey. However, the radar is also picking up a squadron of Russian ICBM, so I wouldn't sweat the thunder shower.
Here's David Letterman in the late 70s.
I'm looking at this can, and it says on there, for the dog that suffers constipation. But, you know, the way I look at it, if your dog is constipated, why screw up a good thing, huh?
And when she first appeared on The Tonight Show in 1985, Roseanne Arnold was good old Roseanne Barr.
You know, because women, we lie to men all the time, you know. It's not that we mean to or anything. It's just that it takes too long to explain the truth. So it's like, oh, you're the best lover I ever had. It's never been like this. Stop, stop, you're killing me.
Monday, the morning.
And now, something I've always wanted to say. Here's Ed.
Thank you, Katie.
How are you,
darling.
Ed?
Good to see you.
Nice
I'm fine.
to see you, too.
And I'll give you want a hi-oh?
I do.
Are you ready? Hi-oh!
Welcome back as we tip our Time and Again hat to Johnny Carson. Even though he retired from The Tonight Show in May 1992, his 30 years on the job made him the undefeated king of late night. And who was at his side through it all? You are correct, sir. Ed McMahon, television's ultimate second banana. Former carnival pitchman, U.S. Marine, radio and TV announcer, Ed was with Johnny from the beginning. His comic foil, always ready with a laugh. His nightly introduction became a TV trademark.
Here's Johnny.
John, let's talk about some of the people on the show.
Mm-hmm.
How would you characterize your relationship with Ed?
Good. Friends. Ed and I, October the 13th, we'll have worked together 25 years. He was with me on Who Do You Trust?
Who Do You Trust, sure.
I was brought to New York to, I can't say audition. I mean, I just came in to meet Mr. Carson. And as you know, I was once he packs a tight suitcase. And what I meant by that was he's a very frugal man, not financially, but about his time and his activities. And you don't know a great deal about him. You know you're close to him. You don't know a lot about him. And he and I talked to one another, and both of us were looking out the window of his office in the little theater, and they were putting up a marquee at the Schubert Theater, and it was a brand new marquee. It was getting away from the old little light marquees. It was a new thing for The Bells Are Ringing with Judy Holliday. And we were both watching them do this because it was like a whole new idea. That was our interview. It lasted 7 minutes. He hardly looked at me, said very little to me. And he shook my hand. He said, it was nice meeting you, Ed. I said, nice meeting you, Mr. Carson. That was it. I walked away. I figured, well, that's over. I blew that job, along with a lot of others I'd blown, but I figured that one I really blew. And about 4 weeks later, somebody called me and said, when you start on Monday. I said, what? They said, when you start on Monday, you know how you always hear these things, on the show, you got the job. And I came up and became his announcer, and then when he came to NBC on The Tonight Show, NBC didn't particularly want me, but he did, and fought for me, and then we started.
You relish the role of second banana.
I love it.
You don't make any apologies for it.
Not at all. From day one, I was very happy. And the only piece of advice I ever got, I went to Johnny the very first day. We'd worked together for 4 years on a daytime show, Who Do You Trust, that became very popular, and that's how he got, noticed and got the job. But I went to him on October 1st, 1962. I walked into his office, and he was right above the studio, and I said, how do you see my role down there tonight? He said, Ed, I don't know how I see my own role. Let's just go down and entertain the hell out of them.
How do you know when he's out there, when he thinks it isn't working? Even if the audience is laughing, he's displeased. Is there some little telltale sign?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I can tell his moods very, very easily. And I watch him, and if you notice when he works, he watches me. He constantly looks at me to get reactions to jokes or whatever. He always is looking over to see what I'm feeling or how I'm doing. And in those moments, I can see that, you know, he wishes that was better, or he wishes he hadn't said that, or why did he do that joke?
On May 22nd, 1992, Ed will end his Tonight Show career, and never again will we hear him say,
Here's Johnny.
Every night, you have done this for 30 years almost.
Right.
And now you're leaving. This has got to be a little like adolescence. It's like who am I if I'm not Ed McMahon?
Well, it's almost like another
Show?
beginning for me. It will be, and will be for him too, I'm sure. But everybody I know, I say, watch it, because it's coming to a close, and there'll never be anything like it again. It'll never happen again. No other person in this business will ever last 30 years. We're going to go out. We won't go out like a lion. We'll go out like a lamb. We won't whimper, but we'll just kind of drift off into the sunset. He'll pick up his cup, I'll pick up my cup, and we'll just go right to the Smithsonian Institute. Instead of the figures that they have, we'll sit there. He'll have his desk, I'll have the chair, and we'll just wave to people as they go by.
Hi, David. What's your question for Ed?
My question is, what do you miss most about The Tonight Show?
Working with Johnny Carson, just having fun with him, playing with him. For 34 years we were together. And, you know, it's great to wake up in the morning and know that you're going to meet that man who's so clever, so talented, and very funny in all regards. And then just be sitting there, like you and I are sitting with Johnny. You know that's going to be very funny. Something's going to happen funny out of that, and I love that. That was a wonderful time.
He has pretty much just dropped out of the entertainment scene.
He won't do anything. He won't accept any awards.
He won't do
He turned down the
anything.
Emmy. They would invite him to come in for the 50th anniversary of the Emmys. He wouldn't do it. Turned down the Oscars every year. They want him to host the Oscars.
How come? He just...
I don't know. I thought for sure he'd do the Oscars. That's where he was headed. That was the perfect show for him. Remember, he did 5 nights a week? Then he took Mondays off. Then he started taking Tuesdays off. He was doing 3 days a week. Finally, the ultimate show is 1 day a year. You know, do the Oscars, and that's it. You know, that would have been a dream for him. You know, keep getting rid of shows and do the Oscars.
But no cigar. Is he happy?
He's very happy. He's got a boat. He loves his boat. He plays tennis a couple of days a week, and he is on his boat. He's very happy.
It's a good relationship because we understand, read each other very well. Most of the stuff we do at the desk when we're just fooling around, none of it's usually rehearsed. We'll stumble on something, and he'll pick up my mood and either start to put me down or play with it, and that's the way it works.
Ed McMahon may have been Johnny Carson's right-hand man, but to his left every night, the leader of the band. We'll hear from Doc Severinsen in just a moment.
Next, the award for the best fanfare by a trumpet player on a TV variety show. The nominees are Robert Petroli, Jules Green, and Doc Severinsen. The winner is... hung up. Doc Severinsen. Doc, we're all very thrilled and happy for you. Would you show the folks, if you will, please, the award-winning fanfare? Bet. All right. Wonderful. Fine, Doc, and now... Well, and now... Give me your... Damn it, right in your bird there. Get out of here.
Doc Severinsen making music on The Today Show in 1970. When Johnny Carson began hosting The Tonight Show in 1962, Doc was assistant conductor. 5 years later, he became band leader, a job he held for the next 25 years.
Let me get this straight. Doc Severinsen, band leader, musician, classical player, we just find out, actor, even actor, I gather. What's
well, I don't know about that.
What's the real Doc Severinsen?
Maybe a little shy and quite a bit rebellious, I might add.
How many more years are you going to continue on the Carson show, do you think?
Nobody knows that. I think if you'd ask Johnny, he would tell you very candidly that he doesn't know right now. But we've been there for a long time. People still like us, and we don't see a reason to leave right now.
That was 1986. The reason to leave would come 6 years later with Johnny Carson's retirement. NBC's Bob Costas later asked Doc if a day went by that he didn't think of that final week.
Well, if there's a day that goes by that I don't think of it, in that day somebody will remind me of it, usually traveling, because I think that it was a happening for everybody in this country. Everybody could identify with what was happening there. A lot of people grew up with The Tonight Show, and they sensed a part of the aging process for themselves, and it brought it home in a very personal way.
Everyone remembers Bette Midler on the second to last night. On the final night, there were no guests, and Johnny showed some clips and reminisced and said his goodbyes. But the last regular show, Bette and Robin Williams.
Right.
Is it true that she didn't rehearse the You Made Me Watch You bit? She just came out and did it?
The special material she had prepared on that song, she had rehearsed with her pianist.
Right, but not with you guys.
No. And then she decided to sing Johnny's favorite song, which is Here's That Rainy Day. And her pianist wasn't there. Ross Tompkins, our pianist, started filling in with her. And she started singing to Johnny, totally unbeknownst to anybody, and Johnny started singing back to her. And it was truly one of the great moments. And for all of us, where the emotions had been building for 6 months, and to have it come down to that, that was hard to do.
Was I'll Be Seeing You the last song you actually played?
I think it was.
It was one of Johnny's favorites, and Tony Bennett sang it earlier that same week, and then you, in effect, played him off with that, right?
Right. You know, over the years that we did this show, and especially as time went on, I tried to conjure up in my mind, what's it going to be like when we leave here? I mean, you know, this is not going to be the easiest thing. And I'd always thought, oh, maybe someday Johnny will be driving in from Malibu. The traffic will be a little thick, and he'll call NBC and say, hey, this is Johnny. I hope you got a good guest host, because I'm through. I'm not coming in anymore. Hang up the phone, and that would be it. I guess I was looking for the easy way out. And then he made the announcement, and it still wasn't real to us, because we had almost a year to go. And then you get to that last 6 months, and it started to just build. And there wasn't anything that prepared any of us for what happened. Like you get down to the last 2 weeks, and there were just raw nerves all over the place.
Was it ultimately satisfying in the end? Was the way it wound up, did it scratch all the itches for you?
Yes, and I think the main reason for that is that Johnny exercised good judgment as to when he wanted to leave. He had a lot more shows left in him. And the American public has made it clear that they miss Johnny and all of that. But Johnny said, nope. He said, I've always prided myself on my sense of timing. And he said, according to what I'm feeling, this is the time for us to leave.
I want to taste my beer, but I can't.
Johnny Carson asking to get off the Tonight Show is roughly equal to George Washington asking to get off the $1 bill, since one is about as familiar as the other, part of the American scenery. But Carson says he wants to leave. He has sat there and asked the questions for as long as he cares to. He wants to get out by this fall, he says.
After 17 years, I'm getting a little tired of it. I don't think I can bring anything new to it, and It gets a little tougher all the time to do it, and I want to keep the standard of the show up. And I feel if I go too long, I won't be able to do that.
Johnny Carson in 1979. Johnny stayed with The Tonight Show, of course, and he kept the standard up with a new contract that cut the show from 90 minutes to an hour. More than a decade later, Johnny decided it really was time to call it a night. His last show came on May 22nd, 1992, and earlier that evening on the nightly news, NBC's Keith Morrison took notice.
Today, his last day, he drove himself to work, like always. An intensely private man who, for the crowd, can always make light of it.
You didn't really believe that whole thing about my quitting, did you? It's a little rating stunts for sweet period. You believe all of this?
Here's Johnny.
It's funny, really. He never tried to be anybody's leader or excuse his famous foibles or take advantage of the stage he occupied.
You're sure you're in a good mood? You've been outside for 12 hours with a thermos of margaritas.
Anybody else want to have a sandwich delivered to you in line? No.
And yet, out on the sidewalks around his studio, day and night, people waited actually to pay homage.
We got here at 7:30 yesterday morning.
Right on. Canada, from Canada. Brooklyn, New York.
Hey! Johnny for president!
Johnny for press!
We're going to see Johnny Carson, man.
Why?
We'll never be able to do it again. It's history. We're part of history.
And here was this growing crescendo of affection for a TV comedian.
Tonight show.
Inside, they've been packing boxes because everybody goes with Johnny, and signing things and chipping away at stacks of mail and gifts and trying to figure out what they feel.
Look at this, see some of the old things coming in. Happiness is a dry martini. Book Johnny wrote years ago.
Old moments, which were bits of relief for a country. In Omaha, Nebraska, he toyed with magic for a while. And maybe it was a kind of magic that kept the voice and gestures and gentle humor the same.
We hope a good many of you are enjoying Christmas with your families today. And you've exchanged presents already, probably had a very nice Christmas dinner.
So now, said his friend and producer Fred DeCordova,
because we know that the door is kind of closing on a great chapter in television and on our lives.
It's terribly sad for everybody, for the people who work here, for the people who've been watching all these years. We're all going to miss him terribly.
There's too many emotions to go through.
And Johnny, who's a warm, wonderful man. He's been the best boss you could ask for, ever, ever.
Yesterday, as he left, the staff came by to watch, and nobody really had to say anything. And maybe that was why so shy and private a man could be the one continuing thread a country could hold on to. Or why a woman could sing this way.
Well, that's how it goes. And John, I know you're getting anxious to close. So thanks for the cheer. I hope you didn't mind me bending your ear. For all of the years, for the laughs, for the tears, for the class that you showed. Make it one for my baby and one more for the road. That long, long road.
And tonight, he'll say goodbye.
We'll have Johnny's goodbye and a special treat from the archives when Time and Again continues.
Your And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny.
Any show that's immediate and spontaneous and live pretty well gives you an impression of what kind of person it is. I don't think you can hide much. I remember when I went to do the show and then replaced Jack Parr. I was intimidated.
Ed goes with me as the announcer on the show, so I'm good.
I don't know what makes somebody funny at all. I have no idea. It's just the way you look at things.
And I'll be right back in just a second.
Joe's bought the farm. He's cashing his chips. Kick the bucket. He's deceased, departed, hard as a carp.
What you try to do is to keep from boring people. You have to keep that little edge.
Don't care. Don't expect to pay us. That's when we care. You can tell what an exciting vacation I had. When you sit around just watching hair grow, you get to keep the wardrobe, too,
I take all the things home, everything home. I never make a pirate picture.
If your guest looks bad, the show looks bad. You want the guest to be good. You want to get something out of them. The government's a great source of comedy material.
President Carter just asked Amy if we should scrap the MX missile system.
Anybody's expendable. One Parr did the show. Everybody says, nobody can replace Jack Parr. That's true. They'll say, all right, nobody can replace Johnny Carson. True to that extent, that they will do the show completely different.
And so it has come to this. I am one of the lucky people in the world. I found something I always wanted to do, and I have enjoyed every single minute of it. I want to thank the gentlemen who've shared this stage with me for 30 years, Mr. Ed McMahon, Mr. Doc Severinsen, and you people watching. I can only tell you that it has been an honor and a privilege to come into your homes all these years and entertain you. And I hope when I find something that I want to do and I think you will like and come back, that you'll be as gracious inviting me into your home as you have been. I bid you a very heartfelt good night.
Johnny Carson gave America a laugh before it went to bed for 30 years, under 7 presidents. But the night he said goodbye, no one was laughing. His exit, low-key, classy, heartfelt, reminded people how much they would miss him once he was gone. We'll leave you with another reminder that's good for a laugh. Johnny Carson trying out a few moves on Joy Heatherton, dance moves, in 1965. That's Time and Again for now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jane Pauley, and we're History.
What is the Watusi?
The Watusi.
There, a Watusi? Is that a dance? No, I'm not ready for that. This is the way we use the jitterbug.
Square.
Ready? What do you mean, square? Ready? Go.
If I had to do it all over again, I'd probably make the same mistakes and do it the same way.
Damn good, too.
Thanks.
The night. Here's Johnny. From the 60s to the 90s, he defined television comedy.
Well, get out there, troops, and sell those cookies.
This guy was an emperor of the industry.
Night in and night out, he was our host, and no one ever did it better.
This group sounds like you went a little heavier on the nog than you did the egg.
The nation says good night and goodbye one last time.
I bid you a very heartfelt good night.
Good night, Johnny. A Dateline special. Here now is Ann Curry.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, a special dateline for a very special man who brought laughter into our lives as a member of the NBC family for more than 30 years, Johnny Carson. He died today at the age of 79, so what we will do is spend the next hour looking back at his extraordinary career, talking with people who knew and loved him, and most of all, remembering him as he wanted to be remembered, a man who made us laugh. Our special Good Night, Johnny begins in a moment.
We've been afraid.
America is saying goodbye tonight to a man who spent 30 years doing almost anything to keep us up nights. Johnny Carson, who ruled network comedy as the host of NBC's Tonight Show, died today at the age of 79. His family was by his side when he passed away at his home in Malibu from complications of emphysema. Carson disappeared from the public eye 13 years ago, but all those years can't outweigh all those unforgettable moments when we went to bed still laughing out loud. Here's Josh Mankiewicz with a look at the life of Johnny Carson.
For 30 years, one man defined comedy in America. For 30 years, one man was the life of a nightly party. And the whole nation was invited.
Here's Johnny!
Night in and night out, Johnny Carson was seen more often and by more people than any other performer in the history of television.
Hi, diddle diddle.
He was urbane, but never slick.
Hi, diddle diddle.
How do you greet your diddle diddle in the morning?
Witty, but never cruel.
This group sounds like you went a little heavier on the nog than you did the egg.
A walking, talking piece of American art polished to a high gloss. His producer for 22 years said Carson was quite simply the perfect television host.
If you had to invent somebody to do the job beautifully, he's the man the Lord invented for it.
El Moldo, yes. Could you guess his hometown now?
I'm working on it. Maybe Carson's talents were God-given.
I see Chicago. No, I didn't say you lived there. I said I saw it.
The Joey Bishop Show. But that didn't stop dozens of imitators from trying and failing to become the next Johnny Carson. Dick Cavett was one of them.
So much more skill is involved in what he did, that people don't realize. God.
She went to Lincoln High, and she was voted Miss Lincoln because every guy in school took a shot at her in the balcony.
What was Carson's secret formula for success?
So get out there, troops, and sell those cookies.
Johnny's perpetually smiling lips were always sealed.
God, I love cookies.
The trouble is when you start to discuss comedy, it becomes awfully dull. Once you try to explain why something's funny, it's not funny.
But biographer Ron Smith says Carson invented modern comedy by synthesizing many of the performers who had come before him.
He had the warmth of Jack Benny. He had the Oliver Hardy glare into the camera. He had some of Jonathan Winter's weirdness. But he was able to combine this all into one all-American package.
Got no credit, got no job, we don't care. Got a bad credit rating, we don't care. Got a prison record, we don't care. Don't expect to pay us, that's when we care.
All of it was a roadmap to America's funny bone.
Drive till you come to fork in the road.
But if a joke didn't work, and plenty didn't, or if a guest would stink, and plenty did, Johnny always came out smelling like a rose. No one else ever got so much mileage out of bad material.
And she said, deporting Robin Leach.
His bomb takes, as they're sometimes called, were so funny.
Hello, 1, 2. Attention, Kmart shoppers.
He made that an art form. It was really something all his own.
But even when he laid an egg, Johnny was always NBC's golden goose. For 3 decades, no matter what shape the peacock was in, The Tonight Show always paid the bills, in some years earning more than 20% of the network's profits.
You know who Gene Kelly is? Fred Astaire?
No, I don't.
Okay. John Travolta? Mickey Mouse.
In all, he schmoozed with more than 20,000 guests on 6,500 shows. Johnny was as big a star as any who came to sit on his couch. He could hold his own with anyone.
This is a little sleeping bird. Isn't that cute?
He'd always get the most out of the not-so-famous. From the very old...
Look at this one, Johnny.
to the very young.
I know when your birthday is.
You know when my birthday is?
Yes.
When?
October 23rd, 1925.
Here's Johnny. John William Carson, that is. Born in Iowa, Johnny was raised in Norfolk, Nebraska, a Norman Rockwell slice of Middle America. His father was a manager for the local power company. His mother managed the house. As the great Carsoni, young Johnny found himself when he discovered magic in a deck of cards. After a hitch in the Navy during World War II and a degree from the University of Nebraska thanks to the GI Bill, Johnny got in on the ground floor of something called television.
My name's Johnny Carson.
Carson took over The Tonight Show in 1962. And through a turbulent decade as assassinations, Vietnam, and a cultural upheaval rocked the nation, Johnny's easy brand of entertainment was a perfect tonic.
Critics sometimes say, well, The Tonight Show is light, it's frivolous, it doesn't have any great social impact and so forth, and serious things aren't discussed. But that's not what I'm there for. There's nothing wrong with going out and just making people laugh or entertain. There's a certain social value in that.
He knew the brink of rudeness, and there was never a question he'd cross the line. If Johnny said it, it must be in good taste.
Welcome to Frontier Bridge.
He never shed that Norman Rockwell image of being just plain folks, even when Johnny, by now a megastar, had his portrait painted by Rockwell himself.
You know, I've been depressed lately.
Depressed?
Yes! Depressed! Why do you repeat everything? I can go to Taco Bell for that. Why do you...
He not only killed his audiences, he killed the competition. But while show after show fell to the Carson mystique, countless careers were made by a guest spot on The Tonight Show. For young comedians like Jerry Seinfeld, the road to success led straight through beautiful downtown Burbank.
Good evening. Boy, this is so exciting. This guy was an emperor of the industry, and you were going to perform for the emperor. If you're on The Tonight Show and you do well, you're in show business. It's like, welcome. They stamp your hand and you go in. The difference between before and after The Tonight Show, there's nothing like that around today.
To the public, Johnny had it all. The incredible home, fame, success. One of America's richest entertainers. In his last year at The Tonight Show in 1992, he earned $30 million.
It'd be a nice place to come and feed the squirrels. And if I ever have any financial reverses, it'd be a nice place to come and eat the squirrels.
But Johnny never really seemed all that comfortable with his fame, or for that matter, with himself. By his own admission, he smoked too much, and at times drank too much. Some said he was cold, certainly never easy. Until, that is, he hit his mark on the Tonight Show stage.
Johnny's happiest moments would have been when the audience is applauding, and he, with his extraordinary skill, makes them laugh and laugh.
But in private, he knew plenty of heartache. 3 failed marriages became the stuff of a dozen punchlines.
To all the girls who shared my life, now are someone else's wife.
Much harder to deal with was the death of the second of his 3 sons in a car accident. Helping him through that and the rest of his life was his 4th and final wife, Alexis. Unlike many of today's comedians who serve up their neuroses to the audience, Johnny stayed as opaque as the curtain from which he emerged.
I'm a shy person. People call that being standoffish. They don't understand that you're uncomfortable. Ed McMahon says, Carson packs a tight suitcase. I guess that means you keep your emotions and your personal feelings sometimes under check, and that's true.
Volumes were written about his remoteness, but there were moments when America caught glimpses of a very different Johnny Carson. After a trip home to Nebraska, Johnny told Dick Cavett about a reunion with an old teacher and driving a car his father had owned 40 years earlier.
And as he told me this, he began to tear up. We were also conditioned to think that he had no feelings somehow. He's very sentimental, and very much of Nebraska was never removed from Johnny.
If it was an act, he was playing himself. And somewhere along the way,
Here's Johnny!
He and his show became one legend. When he decided to retire after 30 years, it was front-page news. Even at the end of his career, he had perfect timing.
30 years is enough. Good time to get out while you're still on top of your game plan. You know, you're still working well.
For all of the years, for the laughs, for the tears.
He had an uncanny performer's sense of when to step out of the spotlight. In retirement, Johnny Carson simply faded from view. For television's greatest career, there was no curtain call, and we were missing him long before he was gone.
Make it one for my baby, and one more for the road.
It has been an honor and a privilege to come into your homes all these years and entertain you.
That long,
I bid you a very heartfelt good night.
And when we come back, a rare interview with a very private Johnny Carson, plus more great moments from our nights with Johnny.
No kidding, because I got a surprise for you.
Johnny Carson's death today came as a surprise to his millions of fans who had heard so little of him over the last decade or so. A shy and discreet man, he didn't like talking about himself. But in 1983, he did sit down for a rare interview with Brian Gumbel on the Today Show and gave us a glimpse inside the man who gave us so many reasons to laugh.
Basically, I'm a shy person. I mean, some may sound strange, but I am inside. I find large groups of people difficult to deal with. If I go in where there are 100 people in a room, I feel very uncomfortable. But I felt that way before I was ever on television, so that's nothing new to me. When you're young, people call that being standoffish or being conceited. They don't understand that you're uncomfortable. So I probably hide a lot of that personally. But that doesn't mean that you're hostile. It's you're cold and Ed McMahon says, Carson packs a tight suitcase.
I read that.
I guess that means you keep your emotions and your personal feelings sometimes under check, and that's true.
He said you have difficulty showing your emotions.
Probably, yeah. Probably true. I don't like to be interviewed, strangely enough. I told you this before the show. I don't know why.
Make you uncomfortable?
Just a little bit. Yeah. Because I guess I'm private, and sometimes I think, well, maybe I'm saying things I shouldn't.
For that reason, do you find yourself sometimes saying, no, I'm not going to ask my guest that because I wouldn't want that?
Oh, no, that's different. That's different. The way I treat them is, no, sure. No.
Just do as I say, not as I do?
You got it. No, whatever will work. I try not to ask questions that I think will embarrass people. I have had people come on and say, hey, don't ask about my marriage. Don't ask about so-and-so. And I respect that. I understand if it's causing them some kind of personal problems, because we've all had our little personal problems along the way. And if somebody says, sets the rule, oh, come on, but I don't want to be asked about so-and-so, you either respect it or you don't have them on. But I don't think it's fair to bring somebody on and then slip a curve and make them look bad. Because the show is only what it is. And if the guest looks bad, the show looks bad. You want the guest to be good. You want to get something out of them. And you're not going to get them out if they're sitting there waiting for you to drop a bomb on them.
Are you cognizant of how intimidating it is to be a guest on your program?
No, people tell me that, and I don't understand that. I really don't. You were mentioning a while ago when we were talking. You said you were on twice. You were on once with me, and you were on with someone else.
Yeah.
And you said you were uptight.
I really was, and I don't get nervous. But
see, I don't find myself intimidating. I think what it is, people have seen that show for so many years, whether I was doing it or anybody else. I remember when I went to do the show and replaced Jack Parr. I was intimidated. When the initial offer came up to do the Tonight Show, I really was very hesitant. It was comfortable. It was an easy show to do. They were paying me very good money. And I said, why should I, go in and try something else?
What changed that around? Don't tell me money.
No, the challenge. If you like television and you're going to be a performer, then you've got to go to the next step. I did the show similar to what the Tonight Show is on WOW in Omaha in 1949, called The Squirrel's Nest. And all it was a set, a desk, some props, some chairs. And you did interviews, you did comedy, you did anything you could to fill an hour a day. I remember the first night standing backstage, and somebody said, well, when this is over, it'll be a week. Then it'll be a year. Then somebody says, 10 years from now, you won't even remember this night. And we all laughed, thinking there's no way anybody's going to do this for 10 years.
Do you remember the night well?
Certainly.
What went well, what didn't?
There was a lot of panic. When you follow Jack Parr, who was a unique personality, mercurial, was in the press all the time, controversial, I realized that there's no way I could follow Jack Parr by trying to emulate Jack Parr. So you have to really go on and do your own show. So you go out with a certain amount of trepidation and say, well, it's going to take a few weeks or a few months to get it settled. And eventually people either like what I do or don't. But you don't go out with any preset concept.
What about the guy over your shoulder, Karnak?
OPEC.
OPEC.
What does an Irish chicken do?
I took and we started it in the daytime as backward quiz. Now, we just wanted to dress it up a little bit rather than just sitting there and give it some kind of character. And we've been using it for years.
Art Fern's Tea Time movie.
Yeah.
How did it get started?
This is a mixture of a lot of people in California in the early days. Used car dealers, because in California, for some strange reason I've never been able to understand, people who own automobile agencies have to be on television. I think it's written into the state legislature. If you get an automobile, you must go on television and sell your own cars.
Here at the Gut Hut, don't worry. If you got no credit, got no job, we don't care. Got a bad credit rating, we don't care. Got a prison record, we don't care. Don't expect to pay us, that's when we care. To get to the Gut Hut, you take the Hollywood Freeway, to the Harbor Freeway, to the Long Beach Freeway, drive till you come to Fork in the Road.
It's a composite of a lot of different people. There was a fellow one time out there who did local movies and would come on and sell anything and everything. So it's a composite of all of those people. Just a little seedy, likable, but a lot of con. Yeah. A lot of con. It's a rhythm piece, what we call a rhythm piece. What you try to do is to keep from boring people. You don't come out with any master plan that this show is going to be great, because you can't be good every night. So you have to keep that, I think, that little edge. If you don't, then you get bored of the show yourself. The audience is going to get bored. Jimmy Durante once said, he says, when do you know when to quit? He says, Jimmy says, the audience doesn't show up. They're not there. That's when you quit. And he's right. You get up some night, there's nobody in the audience. Or, or you tune in and you're getting beaten by reruns of Beaver or whatever. Then you say, it's time to pack it in.
You have had so many people on your program over the years, so many important people, so many well-known people. Anybody you've wanted to book and been unable to?
Yeah, a few people.
Who?
Cary Grant. I have a running joke going with Cary Grant. He's a great fan of the show, as I am of him. And I keep saying, Cary, why don't you do the show? And he says, I don't think so. Nobody wants to see an old movie star. He means it. He feels, I think, a little uncomfortable out there. So when we went to the hour show, when we used to do 90 minutes, I had a wonderful idea. We were going to start the hour show about 3 years ago, I think. So I called Cary Grant, and I said, Cary, I think I've got it for you. Here's what we do. I introduce you the last minute of the show. I say, my guest is Cary Grant. You walk out and you sit down. And I say, Cary, how are you? And you say, it's wonderful to be here. And I'll ask you a question and say, I'm sorry, Cary, we're out of time. I didn't realize we had the hour format, but thank you for coming. I said, now that's got to do it. So I called him. He said, now what's that again? I just say what? And he entertained that for about 3 days and then bailed out.
Who makes you laugh? I mean, I know you were a big Jack Benny fan.
Oh, yeah, Jack made me lots of people. Fred Allen make me laugh. I worked for Skelton in the early days. I was a writer on his show. I'm a good audience for comedians because I just like guys who stand up, who get in, as we say, in one, and don't have 20 people dancing behind them. It's a different kind of work when you're standing alone and you got an audience, and you have to work that audience, and you've got nothing to back you up. That becomes a challenge. The trouble is when you start to discuss comedy, it becomes awfully dull. George Burns once said, what's funny? He says, if you laugh at it, it's funny. That's as good as it can be described. What's funny to you may not be funny to me. It's all relative.
When we return, our favorite moments, and there were a lot of them from The Tonight Show, with Johnny Carson.
I can't sit and talk to people with an animal on my head. Was he spitting? Was that saliva?
What's your favorite Johnny Carson moment? Tomahawks, wild animals, and little kids come to mind, but there are so many to pick from. However, if your memory is a little fuzzy, here's a look back at some of our very favorite moments from The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Right. All right. Right.
Just don't move. Now, don't you move unless I tell you.
One of the most exciting visits when we come to the West Coast is a great visit from our Easterner, the great sage, seer, soothsayer, famous mystic, all-omniscient, and former tax advisor to Governor Reagan, Karnak the Magnificent.
Is attempting to divine an answer while you're sitting here giggling. May I have silence, please?
Yes. You've had it many times before.
Dippity-doo.
Dippity-doo.
What forms on your dippity early in the morning? Hi, diddle-diddle.
Hi,
Hi, diddle diddle.
How do you greet your diddle diddle in the morning? Hi! Piggly Wiggly.
Piggly Wiggly.
Describe Kermit's wedding night. You know who Gene Kelly is? Fred Astaire?
No, I don't.
Okay. John Travolta? Mickey Mouse. I forget that he's only been in the business 78 days. Have you ever seen this show before?
Well, when I was up vomiting and all that stuff.
I'll tell you what I do. Now, I haven't done a lot for this, but do you like coins?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll show you how to make a coin disappear. All right? All right, and we got, you see this? That's a quarter, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I take it and hold it, and I give it to you, would you hold it for me?
Yeah.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Now, watch very carefully. Okay, here it is. And you hold it. Huh? You like that? Want to see it again?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'll take it over here. Now, you hold that one. Don't let it go. Yeah. It's right over here, in your ear. You like that? Yeah. Okay. You
How
ready?
do you make that really disappear?
What? How do I make it? You get married. Well, how do you call the kitty? You saw it here on this show, a bird calling a cat. That's a gutsy bird. The monkey, how does the monkey go? Very good. I do the choreography. How does the duck go? Freud. Not bad. Little gift from his feathered colon there. But maybe he caught the monologue earlier or something. Okay. Okay, big deal. Don't drink that out of heads or you'll... That bear will hibernate for a year. He gets a slug of that.
They purr.
Relax. They say if you look an animal right in the face and talk to them, then they know you're not scared.
Hello, this is Steve Martin. I'm away from the phone right now, so your call is being answered by an expensive telephone answering machine. Who is also, incidentally, my wife. So if you'll leave your message when you hear the beep, I'll be happy to call you back.
Now that triggers the rewind. The rewind? Now it plays back all the messages you got.
Well, Steve, this is Fred down in the garage. Yeah, we were able to fix that lighter. No problem at all. Cost about $8, I guess. Please call when you get in.
All right.
Steve, this is Jimmy Hoffa. Give me a call when you get a chance.
Meow, 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 meow. Meow, meow, meow.
It's my cat.
Steve, this is Trudy. Don't be embarrassed about the other night. It can happen to any guy. Hello, Steve. This is Victoria. Don't be embarrassed about the other night. Any guy. It doesn't mean you're not a man. Talk to you later.
Steve, this is Bill. Don't be embarrassed.
You're very sexy. No.
Excuse me?
You're very sexy. You
Very
have
sexy.
hair on your toes.
A song in my heart.
You will marry again a fourth time.
I will what?
you will remarry.
One other thing.
What's that?
If I ever catch kleptomaniac Claude Cooper from Cleveland who copped my clean copper clappers from kept in the closet,
Yes?
I'll clobber him. What am I doing? What the hell am I doing here? Can I just hit it easily first, just to see what it... Just, you know, kind of... You have to hit it right on...
You hit right up and all the way through, really quick.
We'll be right back, right after this one.
Comedian Don Rickles, a close friend, joined us next with personal memories of Johnny.
Yahoo Serious.
Yahoo Serious.
What are the 2 stages of sex? Yahoo.
The tributes to Johnny Carson have been pouring in all day. He has touched the lives of so many people. Earlier today, Bob Wright, the chairman and CEO of NBC Universal, offered his condolences for the passing of a man he considered a friend. Mr. Wright wrote, Johnny was a part of our NBC family for more than 30 years, long after his retirement in 1992, and he was a dear friend to both me and my wife, Suzanne. Mr. Wright also noted that Carson's professional and usually anonymous personal generosity launched the careers of countless stars and helped thousands of people. His death marks the passing of a show business legend and a man of warmth and sincerity. Also today, Johnny Carson's successor, Jay Leno, issued a statement saying that no single individual has had as great an impact on television as Johnny. He was the gold standard. Well, joining us now is a man who appeared many times on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, comedian Don Rickles. Don, good evening, and our condolences for the loss of your good friend today.
Well, thank you, Ann.
I know that you, I understand, saw Mr. Carson within the last 6 months. What do you want to say about how he was? How did he look?
He was great. He was great, Ed. My wife and I, Barbara, and Peter LaSalle and his wife Alice, we had dinner at a place called Grenada in Malibu, and we were just delighted that he and his lovely wife came down to have dinner with us. And we started reminiscing and kidding around, and he was a good old Johnny. And that's the last time I saw him, rest his soul. And he was fun to be with. When he wasn't in a big crowd, he was a jewel. Big crowds, he'd get a little nervous.
But that's interesting to hear, especially since he spoke to millions every night. You have credited him with helping you make your career, basically. And there was one particular moment during one of your visits to The Tonight Show when Johnny throws you in a tub of water. Can you explain what happened that night?
Well, unbeknown to me, he was doing this sketch with these Japanese ladies, and they were giving him a massage with the pool alongside of it. And Freddie DeCavita, as I always kidded about, rest his soul, and Peter LaSalle said, he was the producer, said, Don, why don't you go over there and do something? So I just talked to him. So I went over and I talked to him, and he grabbed me and threw me into the pool, and I laughed, and I blew his suit for $40 million. But I forgave him.
Yeah, well, he actually, I think, gets up and pushes you in that tub of water. We're watching that video now.
Oh,
you start to tickle him, and then he actually starts to move you in the water. As we play that video, you know, he once said, I don't know what makes someone funny. I don't know what it is. What made Johnny Carson funny as we see you now completely wet in that pool of water, Don?
Well, Ann, I think his personality was something else. He was a low-key guy that came on, and his attitude, his facial expressions were marvelous. When I was on the show, he always left the space for me to look good. And he never followed the notes. When I'd come on, he'd say, how's your mother? And I'd say, well, it's none of your business. Leave me alone. Find a job, whatever. And we went from there. And it always turned out great. And even socially, he always had a wisecrack with me. And he was the kind of guy, if you gave him a hug, he was from the Midwest, the shoulders got a little tight.
because he wasn't used to that. But I broke him in. First thing you know, we were dancing together.
Well, there you're not buying curtains, however, together. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You know,
I'll do the funny thing.
Okay, all right. I won't even try. Tell me about what you think his legacy will be as a comedian. Many people, many very famous comedians say he really wrote the book.
Well, I think his legacy, for me and for many performers, I think his legacy will be that he had a style, a great deal of class, and he had a charm about him that's beyond belief. And I'm sure the kind of man he is, in heaven right now, he's looking down and saying, why are they making a fuss? He was so embarrassed with something like this to talk about his death, I'm sure. And when I meet him, which will be someday, I'm going to straighten him out.
And what are you going to say to him, Don?
I'm going to say, you got on my nerves, Johnny. The football game was on, and we had to do a memorial to you.
Aww.
But I loved him, and I miss him.
And what do you think? You know, you said that he is someone who is very, very modest, and I think that really came through the TV screen, that he really was deeply a shy person. I think that's one of the reasons why he was so endearing. But what is it that you think he would want us to say about him? In other words, we all want to leave some sort of legacy. Would he want us to celebrate his sense of humor at least?
Well, believe it or not, in my opinion, I think he would say, don't do that. I think he would like us to laugh and kid around about him, but I don't think he'd like us to be serious, saying he's gone and poor Johnny and he was sick and all. He wasn't that kind of guy. I think he just wanted God to put him where he's supposed to be, and that's it, and make God laugh for a while. But he certainly didn't want to fuss about him. And as I speak now, I just hope that somehow he hears me speak. And I know, Johnny, we all loved you, and wherever you are, you'll keep him going. But he was the last guy to say, hey, give me some accolades. He wasn't at all like that.
We had a reporter say tonight, I think, and rightly so, that we missed him even before he was gone. What will you miss about Johnny Carson, Don Rickles?
His soul, his caring for my wife and I, and his great spirit when I was on the show, and how he always made me look like a champion. He was something else. People in the business and the public used to say it was an event when I went on, because he himself made me look like beyond belief. And no one can replace that.
I'm certain that if he can hear you tonight, Don, he would be glad to hear you say such a good thing. Anyone would. Thank you so much, Don Rickles, tonight.
Thank you, and if I may say, may God be good to him.
And I agree. And you can hear more about the life and laughs of Johnny Carson later tonight on MSNBC. And coming up, a bittersweet memory, a fond farewell.
It only weighs about 8 or 10 pounds.
She weighs about 10 pounds.
I just said that. And it's a handful. I want to. Does she ever stop moving?
She's fairly active right now. She sleeps a good part of the day.
What's that?
30 years, and we've never forgotten. Tonight, we say goodbye to the late Johnny Carson when Dateline continues.
Tomorrow on Today, Johnny Carson's longtime sidekick, Ed McMahon, will join others in a fond remembrance of the man who was the king of network comedy. And for more memories of Johnny, visit our website at todateline.msnbc.com. Now, you may remember earlier tonight Johnny Carson's last guest ever, Bette Midler, in a sad and sweet farewell performance to her friend and mentor. What better way to end our broadcast tonight?
The last fool, Mr. Carson, will have to suffer gladly. You are the wind beneath my wings. Oh, well, he is. 2:45. There's no one in the place except you and me. So set 'em up, Joe. Got a little story I think you should know. We're drinking, my friend, to the end of a sweet episode. Make it one for my baby and one more for the road. Got the routine bad. Wish you'd make the music so dreamy and sad. You could tell me a lot, but it's not in a gentleman's code. Let's make it one for my baby and one more for the road. You may not know it, but buddy, you're a kind of poet, and you've had a lot of things to say. And when I'm gloomy, you always listen to me until it's torn away. Well, that's how it goes. And John, I know you're getting anxious to close. So thanks for the cheer. I hope you didn't mind me bending your ear. For all of the years, for the laughs, for the tears, for the class that you showed, make it one for my baby and one more for the road. That long, long road.
I'm Ann Curry. For all of us here at NBC News, good night, and good night, Johnny.
For a transcript of tonight's broadcast or to purchase a video segment, call 1-866-NBC-TAPE.
This is an MSNBC special report, Remembering Johnny. Born in the heartland, made famous on The Tonight Show, Johnny Carson delighted millions with his everyman demeanor and his boy-next-door charm.
I didn't even know you were Jewish.
He's the man who launched 1 million careers while becoming a legend in his own right. And when it was time to say goodbye, he wished he could do it all over again.
I'm one of the lucky people in the world. I found something I always wanted to do, and I have enjoyed every single minute of it.
From a career that spanned 3 decades to the countless comedians who say they owe it all to Johnny, we'll remember Johnny Carson. Now, from MSNBC World Headquarters, Sharon Tay.
Good evening. Tonight, we're remembering Johnny Carson. The king of late-night television died today at the age of 79 after a long battle with emphysema. His family by his side. For the next hour, we're going to look back at Carson's incredible career, as well as his private, personal life. We're going to talk to friends and colleagues who wanted to come on to share their stories. But first, Josh Mankiewicz from NBC's Dateline with the life and times of Johnny Carson.
For 30 years, one man defined comedy in America. For 30 years, one man was the life of a nightly party. And the whole nation was invited.
Here's Johnny!
Night in and night out, Johnny Carson was seen more often and by more people than any other performer in the history of television.
Hi, diddle diddle.
He was urbane, but never slick.
Hi, diddle diddle.
How do you greet your diddle diddle in the morning?
Witty, but never cruel.
This group sounds like you went a little heavier on the nog than you did the egg.
A walking, talking piece of American art polished to a high gloss. His producer for 22 years said Carson was quite simply the perfect television host.
If you had to invent somebody to do the job beautifully, he's the man the Lord invented for it.
El Moldo, yes. Could you guess his hometown now?
I'm working on it.
Maybe Carson's talents were God-given.
I see Chicago. No, I didn't say you lived there. I said I saw it.
The Joey Bishop Show.
But that didn't stop dozens of imitators from trying and failing to become the next Johnny Carson. Dick Cavett was one of them.
So much more skill is involved in what he did, that people don't realize. God.
She went to Lincoln High, and she was voted Miss Lincoln because every guy in school took a shot at her in the balcony.
What was Carson's secret formula for success?
So get out there, troops, and sell those cookies.
Johnny's perpetually smiling lips were always sealed.
God, I love cookies.
The trouble is when you start to discuss comedy, it becomes awfully dull. Once you try to explain why something's funny, it's not funny.
But biographer Ron Smith says Carson invented modern comedy by synthesizing many of the performers who had come before him.
He had the warmth of Jack Benny. He had the Oliver Hardy glare into the camera. He had some of Jonathan Winter's weirdness, but he was able to combine this all into one all-American package.
Got no credit, got no job, we don't care. Got a bad credit rating, we don't care. Got a prison record, we don't care. Don't expect to pay us, that's when we care.
All of it was a roadmap to America's funny bone.
Drive till you come to fork in the road.
But if a joke didn't work, and plenty didn't, or if a guest would stink, and plenty did, Johnny always came out smelling like a rose. No one else ever got so much mileage out of bad material.
And she said, deporting Robin Leach.
His bomb takes, as they're sometimes called, were so funny.
Hello, 1, 2. Attention, Kmart shoppers.
He made that an art form. It was really something all his own.
But even when he laid an egg, Johnny was always NBC's golden goose. For 3 decades, no matter what shape the peacock was in, The Tonight Show always paid the bills, in some years earning more than 20% of the network's profits.
You know who Gene Kelly is? Fred Astaire?
No, I don't.
Okay. John Travolta? Mickey Mouse.
In all, he schmoozed with more than 20,000 guests on 6,500 shows. Johnny was as big a star as any who came to sit on his couch. He could hold his own with anyone.
This is a little sleeping bird. Isn't that cute?
He'd always get the most out of the not-so-famous. From the very old...
Look at this one, Johnny.
to the very young.
I know when your birthday is.
You know when my birthday is?
Yes.
When?
October 23rd, 1925.
Here's Johnny. John William Carson, that is. Born in Iowa, Johnny was raised in Norfolk, Nebraska, a Norman Rockwell slice of Middle America. His father was a manager for the local power company. His mother managed the house. As the great Carsoni, young Johnny found himself when he discovered magic in a deck of cards. After a hitch in the Navy during World War II and a degree from the University of Nebraska thanks to the GI Bill, Johnny got in on the ground floor of something called television.
My name's Johnny Carson.
Carson took over The Tonight Show in 1962. And through a turbulent decade as assassinations, Vietnam, and a cultural upheaval rocked the nation, Johnny's easy brand of entertainment was a perfect tonic.
Critics sometimes say, well, The Tonight Show is light, it's frivolous, it doesn't have any great social impact and so forth, and serious things aren't discussed. But that's not what I'm there for. There's nothing wrong with going out and just making people laugh or entertain. That's a certain social value in that.
He knew the brink of rudeness, and there was never a question he'd cross the line. If Johnny said it, it must be in good taste.
Welcome to Frontier Bridge.
He never shed that Norman Rockwell image of being just plain folks, even when Johnny, by now a megastar, had his portrait painted by Rockwell himself.
You know, I've been depressed lately.
Depressed?
Yes! Depressed! Why do you repeat everything? I can go to Taco Bell for that. Why do you...
He not only killed his audiences, he killed the competition. But while show after show fell to the Carson mystique, countless careers were made by a guest spot on The Tonight Show. For young comedians like Jerry Seinfeld, the road to success led straight through beautiful downtown Burbank.
Good evening. Boy, this is so exciting.
This guy was an emperor of the industry, and you were going to perform for the emperor. If you're on The Tonight Show and you do well, you're in show business. It's like, welcome, they stamp your hand and you go in. The difference between before and after The Tonight Show, there's nothing like that around today.
To the public, Johnny had it all. The incredible home, fame, success. One of America's richest entertainers. In his last year at The Tonight Show in 1992, he earned $30 million.
It'd be a nice place to come and feed the squirrels. And if I ever have any financial reverses, it'd be a nice place to come and eat the squirrels.
But Johnny never really seemed all that comfortable with his fame, or for that matter, with himself. By his own admission, he smoked too much, and at times drank too much. Some said he was cold, certainly never easy. Until, that is, he hit his mark on The Tonight Show stage.
Johnny's happiest moments would have been when the audience is applauding, and he, with his extraordinary skill, makes them laugh and laugh.
But in private, he knew plenty of heartache. 3 failed marriages became the stuff of a dozen punchlines.
To all the girls who shared my life, now are someone else's wife.
Much harder to deal with was the death of the second of his 3 sons in a car accident. Helping him through that and the rest of his life was his 4th and final wife, Alexis. Unlike many of today's comedians who serve up their neuroses to the audience, Johnny stayed as opaque as the curtain from which he emerged.
I'm a shy person. People call that being standoffish. They don't understand that you're uncomfortable. Ed McMahon says, Carson packs a tight suitcase. I guess that means you keep your emotions and your personal feelings sometimes under check, and that's true.
Volumes were written about his remoteness, but there were moments when America caught glimpses of a very different Johnny Carson. After a trip home to Nebraska, Johnny told Dick Cavett about a reunion with an old teacher and driving a car his father had owned 40 years earlier.
And as he told me this, he began to tear up. We were also conditioned to think that he had no feelings somehow. He's very sentimental, And very much of Nebraska was never removed from Johnny.
If it was an act, he was playing himself. And somewhere along the way,
here's Johnny!
He and his show became one legend. When he decided to retire after 30 years, it was front-page news. Even at the end of his career, he had perfect timing.
30 years is enough. Good time to get out while you're still on top of your game plan. You know, you're still working well.
For all of the years, for the laughs, for the tears.
He had an uncanny performer's sense of when to step out of the spotlight. In retirement, Johnny Carson simply faded from view. For television's greatest career, there was no curtain call. And we were missing him long before he was gone.
Make it one for my baby and one more for the road.
It has been an honor and a privilege to come into your homes all these years and entertain you. I bid you a very heartfelt good night.
That was Josh Mankiewicz from NBC's Dateline. After the break, Merv Griffin joins me with his unique insight into what made Johnny Carson and The Tonight Show such a success. Throughout this program, we're going to be showing you the outpouring of emotion from those who knew Carson best. Bob Wright, chairman and CEO of NBC Universal, released this statement. "We are deeply saddened by the passing of Johnny Carson today. Johnny was a part of our NBC family for more than 30 years. Long after his retirement in 1992, and he was a dear friend to both me and my wife, Suzanne. As host of The Tonight Show, his gift was the ability to make millions of Americans feel they, too, had a very close friendship with Johnny. His professional and usually anonymous personal generosity launched the careers of countless stars and helped thousands of people. With his lightning-quick wit, effortless delivery, and immense charm, he was without peer in late-night television. His death marks the passing of a show business legend and a man of warmth and sincerity. We offer our heartfelt condolences to Johnny's wife, Alex, and his entire family." And as we go to the break, the sentiments from Jay Leno as well. We'll be right back.
Well, that's it for me. Why don't you guys get with the band? Hey, Frank, it's good to see you. I just was hanging around in the hall, and they said Frank Sinatra's here, and I've never met him, you know. And I get the chill.
You'll excuse us once you
Certainly.
And there you have it, Don Rickles and Frank Sinatra on a Tonight Show appearance. Johnny Carson started The Tonight Show in October of 1962, on the very same day that another soon-to-become Hollywood legend also joined NBC. And for the next 30 years or so, their careers and paths kept on crossing. Merv Griffin joins me now by phone from his ranch in La Quinta, California. Good afternoon,
Hi,
Mr. Griffin. It's
you don't
good
want me to give the temperature out here, do you?
No, I have heard it's like in its 80s. I know already.
But it's a very sad day for all
It is a
of us,
very
you know,
sad
who
day.
love
Your thoughts,
Johnny.
please.
Pardon?
And your thoughts?
Are many. You know, we both started, as you said, on the same day in the same studio. I taped at 12 noon. He taped at 6 o'clock. And I had replaced Parr a lot that summer. And so I had a bit of a history with celebrities and stuff. Johnny was coming from the game show, Who Do You Trust? And it was kind of war between our staffs on who got who as a guest star. But it was all in great fun. And later on, shortly after when I started with Westinghouse and I went to CBS, his brother was my director all those years. I think 18 years, Dick Carson, who was just on the other phone, was my director, and a wonderful one. He had been the director of Johnny, and then asked if he could come over to me, and Johnny okayed it. And later on in life, Johnny and I became good personal friends and saw a lot of each other. Socially, out at the house at Malibu, weekends, he built a beautiful tennis facility. And we play a lot of tennis together. Chevy Chase was always there.
Yeah, I understood he traveled frequently as well.
Johnny, well, like I did too, we both in our later years bought boats.
Really?
Yeah, and Johnny, mine was on the East Coast, and I would head for the Mediterranean, he'd head to South America.
Oh.
And but he loved the water. I mean, that glorious house where we used to all have dinner together with that great wife of his, Alex, who all of us really adore. I mean, she's special. She's one of a kind, and I think the last years of his life spent with Alex was great for him.
Yeah, Merv, let me ask you this.
Then one day the gate closed and none of us ever saw them again.
Yeah,
I
want to go back to that, but from your perspective as a talk show host, Johnny left at the top of his game. Do you think he made the right move? Do you think he made the right decision?
Well, I do. I think he was a very honorable guy, and I think there was some dishonor in the executive department of NBC.
Okay.
And I think he was badly hurt, and I think he, at an affiliates meeting of all NBC executives, they were there to honor him, and he walked out on the stage and said, "My last day will be May something," and that was it.
Were you sad? Because then everybody in the world was sad when he left.
Oh, yeah, and I think he was hurt badly.
Yeah.
And so he left, and that was it, and the rest of his days were, you know, social, and I'll never forget one night I had a birthday party. I owned the Beverly Hilton Hotel at the time, and I gave a birthday party for Ava Gabor, and of course the Carsons came, and a lot of Hollywood.
Was this the Coconut Grove?
No.
This is later.
That was that was the dance club. No, this was a fabulous penthouse restaurant called the Scuffier. And Johnny and Alex came, and all of a sudden at cocktails, Johnny came running over to me, and he said, "Oh my God!" He said, "The Reagans are here," and I said, "Yeah," and he said, "Oh, I better not. I've done a lot of jokes about. I better not see them. I'll stay over on the other side." I said, "Hey,
Merv,
they have great senses of humor." And I took him over and I said, "Here's Johnny," and the Reagans hugged him, and he felt good about that.
Merv, Johnny had been married, 4 times, divorced 3 times.
Yeah.
Alex was his most recent wife. Were they close? Did they seem happy? I mean, they seemed like they had a very tight relationship from the outside, but you know them from the inside.
They were together, and she never left his side, and they had a really wonderful relationship, and I think it was one of his happiest.
Now,
from what I saw in the past.
In the last, I would say maybe last few months, have you been able to? Were you able to see him?
No,
okay.
Not after when the gate closed. That was it for everybody. He didn't see anybody. Some of us suspected that he might have a problem physically, and I guess that's been borne out.
Merv, I have one question to ask you. Tell us something we don't know about Johnny.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
About 20-something years ago, he started for studying Russian.
Really?
Yeah, and we'd go to dinner. He had a restaurant, and it probably still does, in Malibu with Wolfgang Puck called Granada or Grenada. And we'd go to dinner there. He was very proud of that restaurant. And all of a sudden, he'd spend half the time at the table talking in Russian.
Really?
And I was absolutely amazed by him. I mean, that's not an easy language to pick. And I used to say to him, "But Johnny, are you afraid that wall is going to come down in Berlin? They're going to come over it, and you're going to be the first to welcome them to America?" And that used to. I said, "No, I just love this language." He was very interested in a lot of things. Very interested in astronomy. He was forever at his telescope there looking at stars. And they were mostly on his show, but he wasn't peeking in the neighbors' windows. But I mean, he was up there looking at the heavens, and he had so many interests.
So many,
yeah. And you know, and I hear today in tributes and stuff, the people who were on his show, and the interviewer would say, "Well, what was he like backstage?" And they said, "Oh, we never saw him backstage." And I think there was a reason. I think he didn't want to befriend anybody for fear that people would be coming in and talking to him all the time. His full concentration was on, he loved the monologue.
Right.
That was his full focus on the show with those first 15 or 20 minutes.
Well,
and, of course, we all waited for that.
I thank you so much for joining us this evening. And
it's a sad day.
It is a sad day, and thank you again for calling in. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Merv Griffin calling from his home in La Quinta, California. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by some more of the notables who appeared on The Tonight Show and knew Johnny Carson best. And before we go to the break, more heartfelt reaction to the passing of Johnny Carson.
Jokes?
Some of them.
Well, you fit right in.
That was Johnny Carson with a very, very, very young Drew Barrymore. All right, we'll be back with our very special report, Remembering Johnny. That was Johnny Carson, by the way, as I mentioned, interviewing Drew Barrymore. And joining me now to reminisce and reflect on the life of Johnny Carson are some very famous faces who frequented the Tonight Show. Actor Mickey Rooney, along with his wife Jan. Hello.
Hello, Sharon.
Phyllis Diller, who called Carson one of her special friends, also with us this evening. And Mary Murphy, the senior writer for TV Guide. And good evening to all of you. We're going to be back with more, Actually, we're going to go talk to Mr. Rooney and Jan first. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us.
Sorry that we had to meet you on an occasion like this.
Oh, absolutely. It's a sad time. But you know what? You also have to think about it. It's a celebration of Mr. Carson's life.
It's a happy thing.
It is. It's a happy thing,
we're
yet
happy
sad.
that he was here with us.
Absolutely.
Gave us so much entertainment.
What would you like for people out there to know about Johnny Carson?
Who are you asking?
Both of you. Actually, why not? Mickey, why don't you take it away? Mickey first, and then I'll ask Jan.
Well, Johnny Carson was afraid and lived in fear that no one was going to like him.
Oh.
Every night, I'd say, "What's the matter, John?" He'd say, "I'm scared. I'm scared." I say, "You?" He says, "Me." That's right. But I'm not scared now. I'm going on. So that's the way he started the show. I mean, I heard him say that.
Jan, your thoughts?
Well, Johnny Carson was a man with a great big heart, and he was a perfect gentleman, and he made you want to stay up all night and watch him, no matter how tired you were. And everyone loved him, and he knew that, but maybe he was a little bit insecure, I'm not sure. I have heard stories, and it's a shame because he had nothing to be insecure about, of course.
He was insecurely secure. No, tie that one up.
You know,
but you know what? During the war, Second World War, they used to tune Johnny in on the radio, and the troops would laugh like heck.
Yeah.
And I know because I was there.
Had you seen Johnny recently?
No, I haven't. I believe that when he retired, unfortunately, nobody saw him because once he left the studio, he was gone.
He was very private, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And he always fought to have his private life. And that's very tough on all the celebrities, and people don't realize that.
I saw him at a premiere one time, about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and that was the last I've seen him. Maybe it was even longer.
Don't you remember the night at the Academy Awards when I was rehearsing and he had his arm around you and said, "What?"
Mickey and Jan, we're going to get back to you in just a second. Let's go to Phyllis Diller, who's standing by. Good evening, Phyllis. Thank you so much for joining us. You were a very good friend of Johnny Carson's. Can you tell me a little bit about how you're feeling this evening?
Oh, well, I'm feeling very sad about his death, but very, very exuberant about his great life and his wonderful talent.
Phyllis, thank you so much. We're going to get back to you in just a minute. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with a very special look at the life of Johnny Carson.
You can probably tell.
Well, Governor, I thank you for coming here tonight, and my first question is, how are you?
That was then Governor Bill Clinton on Johnny Carson's show. And back now with Phyllis Diller, Mickey Rooney and his wife Jan, and senior writer for TV Guide Mary Murphy. And we're joined by comedian Rich Little, well known for his countless impressions, many of which he performed on The Tonight Show. Good evening, and thank you all for joining us this evening. Let me go back to you, Phyllis, first of all. You were a very good friend of Johnny Carson's. Tell me about the man. Who was he off camera?
Well, he was very shy, as we know, and he was a consummate gentleman, and the consummate artist. When I think of all the characters he invented, and I was just watching so much of what he's done today and laughing out loud. You seldom laugh out loud anymore at people on television. He was just so fantastic as an artist. You see, he started when he was a very young boy doing magic. Therefore, he had such a background for discipline, and he was so disciplined and so funny. I don't believe he'll ever be topped.
And Phyllis, when he left late night television, did he ever mention to you or say to you afterwards whether he regretted it or not? Or that he actually felt good about leaving?
Oh, no, I don't think he discussed those things with anyone. He often was sort of inside. When the commercials would show, he would speak to you privately and sometimes confide in you, but I don't think he discussed that sort of thing. That would be a deep decision.
Right. He, he's revered by so many people, adored by so many celebrities who were just, felt that it was an honor to be on his show. What made him such a remarkable host of late night?
Well, he was the best. He was simply the best. He was the best interviewer, and what he did comic-wise, he was the greatest stand-up comedy that anyone has ever heard. And every night, he was so consistent. He was funny every night.
Phyllis, thank you so much for joining us. We move on to Rich Little. Good evening, Rich. Thank you so much for joining us. You have been on Johnny Carson's show for numerous times in the early stages of your career. Did he help you with your career at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
To be on The Tonight Show was great for a comic because everybody watched The Tonight Show. I can remember saying, oh my gosh, we're out at a restaurant, Johnny's on in 20 minutes, hurry, no dessert, we got to get home and watch Johnny Carson. You don't hear that anymore today. It was the thing to do. He was the best of the best. There was nobody better than Johnny Carson. And I think because he was a great listener, and he didn't look at any questions he had written down. I don't think he had any. In other words, he listened to the person and played off that person. And he could save somebody. If somebody was dying, telling a story that was boring, he could come in and save that person And then when the show was over, that person would go home and say, gee, I was funny on The Tonight Show. Well, they weren't. Johnny was funny.
You had done numerous impressions of Mr. Carson. How did he feel about that?
He loved it.
He did?
He really did. He'd just sit back in that chair and scream, because I would do all his mannerisms. And he wasn't aware of them at first. I did a Dean Martin roast once, and the routine was that Johnny had 23 mannerisms, and I did them all, 23. And he said after, he said, you know, I did not realize that I did that.
I love it.
He said, you know, I should be in a straitjacket. If I probably was, I probably couldn't perform.
Did Rich? Did Johnny give you any advice that you could carry, or actually that is in your heart right now?
As Phyllis said, Johnny was kind of two people. He was terrific on The Tonight Show. I mean, nobody could be better. Now, off The Tonight Show, he was kind of aloof. You didn't go to the dressing room. You didn't socialize with him. You didn't even really say goodbye to him. As soon as the show was over, he was gone. He got in his car, drove it himself. He was gone.
Rich, in fact, right now, I don't know if you can see it, but we're showing an episode of where you are on the Johnny Carson show in the earlier days.
Yeah.
Such memories,
Oh, well, the last time I saw Johnny Carson was in a restaurant, and he came up behind me. This was about 6 years ago.
He did? How did he look?
He looked a little puffy, lost most of his hair. This was 6 years ago, but he still had that little boyish charm to him. That was one of his great appeals. He was like a little kid, you know, even when he got older.
Sure.
And he came up behind me, and he said, Rich, I did not know you were in the restaurant. And I saw you here, and I came up. For a second, I thought, is this somebody behind me doing a bad impression of Johnny Carson?
Rich, we're gonna get back to you in just a minute. We'll be back with our guests in just a moment. But first, this statement released a short time ago by President Bush. Laura and I are saddened by the death of Johnny Carson. Born in Iowa and raised in Nebraska, Johnny Carson was a steady and reassuring presence in homes across America for 3 decades. His wit and insight made Americans laugh and think, and had a profound influence on American life and entertainment. He was a patriot who served in the United States Navy during World War II and always remembered his roots in the heartland of America. We send our prayers and condolences to the entire Carson family. And before we go to the break, this statement by fellow comedian Bill Cosby.
Have you ever seen this show before?
Well, when I was up vomiting and all that stuff.
That was little Joey Lawrence before he became Joe Lawrence on the Johnny Carson show. Back now with comedian Rich Little, Phyllis Diller, Mickey Rooney and his wife Jan, and senior writer for TV Guide Mary Murphy, all reflecting back on the career and life of Johnny Carson. Mary, thank you so much for joining us. I got a question for you. What made this man so very special as a host?
Well, first of all, you know, he dominated television for 3 decades. What made him special, I think, first of all, his legacy today is that we have a generation of comedians who were launched on the Johnny Carson show, from Ray Romano to, you know, Jay Leno, David Letterman, Gary Shandling. But what he did is, first of all, he not only created the monologue as the beginning, but he perfected the monologue. He brought us physical comedy as well as his incredibly sharp wit. He was a master of the look, a master, as we've seen through the clips, of, you know, having animals crawl around on his head.
Yeah.
He also brought real people to television.
Mary, I just want to ask you one question. I'm going to interrupt you because I really want to get this in terms of what happened after he left television. Did he become more private, or was he always private? And who did he hang out with, and what did he do?
Well, he was always private, as everybody has said, but you know, when he left television, it's as if he'd been vaporized. I have done 2 stories about him since he left television, both around his scares. There was a big scare this summer. They said he'd been rushed to the hospital with another heart attack. So I went out to Malibu and Point Dume one more time, but this time, you know, Carson, in the beginning, when he left television, he made some appearances. He was on The Simpsons, you know, he did the Kennedy Honors, he appeared at a Bob Hope special, but speaking of Bob Hope, the one thing that Carson did not want to do is he did not want to age in front of the cameras. And in the last few years, he used to hang out in Malibu all the time. What he's done is he had kind of full service isolation. He's either been on his boat, the Serengeti, or he's been in his home, which is completely isolated with cameras. But, you know, the one thing I know from talking to all his friends this summer is every day Carson watched the news. He watched cable television. He wrote jokes. He paid attention. He was really up with everything. He lived his full life. But, of course, I found out, you know, in May that the emphysema was getting very bad, which completely isolated Carson, even from his favorite restaurants.
Mary, thank you. I'm going to talk to everybody and get their final thought of Johnny Carson. Let's start with Mickey Rooney and his wife, Jan.
Well, besides being such a sharp dresser, he was also a drummer, I understand.
Yeah. We don't have much time, so I'm going to ask you to keep it really brief.
The great thing about Johnny is that he wasn't afraid to try anything.
Okay.
And that is something that a comic never should be, is afraid to try it.
Phyllis, what do you think?
Well, he was the most magnificent comic that has lived in a long time, and I adored him, and we will all miss him dreadfully.
And Rich, your thoughts?
He made other people look good. You know, he let them talk. He didn't interrupt. He didn't think about himself, trying to be funny just for himself. He wanted the guests to do well.
Rich.
And he had that boyish quality, and everybody loved him.
Thank you, Rich. And Mary, last but certainly not least.
The master of the monologue, a man who could pick talent and launch careers, and who did the one thing that he said he would do. He kept his word. He left, and he never came back.
Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Thank you, Phyllis, Rich, Mary, Mickey, and Jan, for taking the time out to reflect on Johnny's life. And as we go to the break, more reaction. We'll be back in a moment.
For the memory, sunburns at the shore, nights in Singapore. You might have had a headache, but you never were a bore. So thank you so much.
Johnny Carson was the king of late-night TV for 30 years. His impact across America was unsurpassed by any other television personality. NBC's James Hattori joins us from what was Carson's final on-air home in Burbank, California, with more. Hi, James.
Hi, Sharon. Of course, Johnny Carson started with The Tonight Show in New York, but after 10 years moved out to the West Coast. Here behind me, Studio One. That was his home for 2 decades. You can still see some images of him painted on the wall. That's Karnak the Magnificent there. All those bits, all the wacky animal acts, all the witty repartee with celebrities, indelibly etched in America's collective funny bone. From New York's snowy Central Park.
He had just an amazing insight and wit. He made us all laugh at ourselves.
To the glitzy Las Vegas Strip.
And he was the only man consistently in our bedroom.
From New York, The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson.
The Tonight Show, everybody watched The Tonight Show. Do you remember the days when people used to say, oh my gosh, you know, no dessert, we got to get home and watch Johnny.
Johnny Carson made just about everyone laugh.
Do you understand all of the jokes?
Some of them.
Well, You fit right in.
There was never anything mean-spirited about his humor. He could be biting and at the same time very gentle.
A comfort guests even felt on the set.
You knew when he was going for a joke, but you knew that the joke wouldn't hurt you. It was never at the guest's expense or at other people's expense. It was always at his.
Here's Johnny!
Ed McMahon, Carson's sidekick for 34 years, says Johnny was like a brother and still thinks of him as the boss. But Americans just think of him as funny.
The way Ed McMahon interacted with him was just great. Yeah, I don't think there'll ever be another Johnny.
It was nighttime TV. You waited up for Johnny Carson.
He was a cosmic force in television. Steve Allen invented late-night television. Jack Parr refined it. But Johnny Carson defined it. And I don't think anybody's going to ever fill those shoes. He was Mr. Late-Night Television.
Carson's last guest on his final show, Bette Midler, the actress-performer, summed up his essence today, saying he was a little bit of devil, a whole lot of angel, grace, wit, charm, perfect comedic timing, and a lot of class. Sharon, as we all know, Johnny was a very private man, and perhaps in keeping with that, his family says there will be no public memorial. Sharon?
I was just going to ask you that. All right, James, thank you so much. James Satori reporting. As James mentioned, Carson's last guest on his final broadcast was, in fact, Bette Midler. And tonight we leave you with that now forever famous serenade as Bette sang "One More for My Baby, One More for the Road." Good night.
So thanks for the cheer. I hope you didn't mind me bending your ear. For all of the years, for the laughs, for the tears, for the class that you showed. Make it one for my baby and one more for the road. That long, long road.